right. All right, we're going to get going here. Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome to HED Talks. We are right in the middle of our new series on the Masters of Science. And today we're going to talk about, well, do you know?
Sir Isaac.
Oh, yes. All right. Does that mean you all read your newsletters?
You told us.
Oh, I told you from last week. Oh, all right. All right. And we've been building up, right? Because look at this quote from Isaac Newton, who is an extraordinary genius. And this is what he has to say. And who are the others? Who are the giants that he's talking about? Are they those are the people that we have been covering leading up to Isaac Newton, right?
Pythagoras.
Yeah, we had Pythagoras, Archimedes.
Yes.
Leonardo da Vinci, Copernicus. So we've been leading up to the amazing breakthroughs that this one man brought to science, brought to the world. So we're going to talk about his life a little bit. And I think to understand him, it's going to be important to understand the times that he lived in. All right, he's born into a world where there is civil war and where something unbelievable happened. Something unbelievable happened in England at this time. Does anybody know?
Is that a clue?
There was civil war.
Well, the king was deposed.
The king, Judy says the king was deposed. Actually, the king was beheaded.
Even better.
Yes, even better. Where's Effie? She always loves a good beheading. Doesn't she? Like whenever there's somebody's being executed, she's the first one to shout out, "Off with their head!" So she would enjoy this, I think. Yeah, oh my gosh, is that actually Effie walking in?
It is. We're just talking about you.
Yes, I'm glad you didn't miss this, Effie. We're talking about King Charles being beheaded.
I know.
Yay!
Yes.
I read that.
You knew about this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm sure you did. So the people of England decided that they no longer wanted a monarchy, correct?
That's right.
They didn't want a monarchy, so what did they decide they wanted to do instead? Yeah, so they put in a different system of government. So for thousands of years, hundreds and hundreds of years, they've got a monarch, and then all of a sudden, they've changed their mind. They don't like that anymore. Okay, so it's the 1600s. And so they've got a prime minister, okay? He's Lord Protector is what he is. And Cromwell is in charge. But did that last for very long?
No, it was just a screw up.
So the people of England, they tried this new thing.
Never mind.
And then they thought, wait a minute. I don't know. I don't know if this is really what we want. Hey, Nikhil, would you mind helping Bill? Please?
They're in the midst of doing that right now with this Brexit thing too, I think.
Yes. So they have decided that they're going to change their mind. And it might interest you to know, and I thought it was timely too. One of the reasons, one of the issues that they had with Cromwell was that he outlawed one of their favorite celebrations, one of their favorite festivals. Do you know what it was? What holiday did Oliver Cromwell outlaw?
Christmas.
Christmas, yes.
Wow.
Oliver Cromwell, he outlawed Christmas. Here it is, yeah. Yes, it was forbidden to celebrate Christmas. But you need to know, the thing you really need to know about that is that Christmas was not, this is pre-Victorian Christmas. It's not the Christmas that we think of and that we know of today. It was really a kind of raucous, yeah, it was really like a Saturnalia sort of a celebration. Yeah, it wasn't, what? Yeah, so it wasn't,
Last year.
yes, that's a photo, that's an actual photo from the Hunt Community Christmas party. No, there you are. No, you're right over there. No, so it was more like a Halloween kind of a thing, and the peasants could go pounding on the door of the upper crust and demand that they let them in, and that they. So you could see why they didn't want that. There was a lot of debauchery and everything. So that was one of the reasons. I just thought I would tell you that. I thought you might be interested in that. And so if you're not going to have your Lord Protector, what did they then decide to do?
Go back to life.
Exactly. So they called back the son of Charles. So this is Charles II, and they reinstall the monarchy. Do you call that chaos?
Yeah.
Would you call that chaos?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so that's happening just in a couple of decades. And that is the world into which this young man is born. All right, in case you've forgotten who we're actually talking about, this is Isaac Newton, because we just went off on a thing. All right, yeah, so he was born in England, in Lincolnshire, and this is the actual farm. Isn't that great? Yep, that's the actual farm. And circumstances surrounding his birth. Do you know his father died? Mother and father were married. His father died 3 months before he was born. And he himself was born premature. He was a preemie. And so he was, it was a miracle that he lived. They didn't expect him to survive.
He lived a long life, too.
What? Yeah, he did live a long life, yes. But he was, so he was teeny tiny, and he never got, to grow. He was always very small, always very small. His mother's name is Hannah, and Hannah is now in a terrible situation, isn't she? All right, so her husband has passed away. The family has a farm. It's her mother and father who have the farm. She has an opportunity to marry someone, and so she does take that opportunity when little Isaac, he's a junior. He's named after his father. Little Isaac is 3 years old when she remarries. And the new husband, do you think he wants the son of another man?
No.
No. And so Hannah leaves little Isaac with her mother and father on the farm, and she goes off with the new husband. Now, we happen to know how little Isaac felt about that. How do you think he felt?
Imagine.
He was probably angry, you think?
Yes.
Yeah, well, we actually know that he was, because later on in life, Isaac Newton, in one of his notebooks, he wrote down quite an extensive list of all his sins. All his sins that he had committed throughout his life, and listed in that notebook, in that list of sins, is his feelings when his mother left him to go with a new husband. And he wrote down that what he wanted to do was burn down the house they lived in with them in it.
Good for him.
So that's how he felt about that. Yeah, he did not take that well. Now, 8 years later, the second husband dies. Is anyone suspicious of Hannah?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Getting suspicious.
But anyway, so the second husband dies. They had children she comes back to the family farm and she reunites with her son. And she really does love him. It's clear that and he loves her. It's one of the very few close relationships that he's able to have in his life. He has very, very few. So she comes back and she's better off financially this time around. So she's got a little bit of money and she decides, I'm going to send my eldest son to school, and he goes to the King's School in Grantham. And what she wants him to study, what she wants him to learn about is she wants him to grow up to be a gentleman farmer, like these guys.
Yeah.
So he goes off to the school, and he's not really doing that well at school. He's disinterested. He's not interested in what he's learning. He's not interested in farming. He's just not interested. And remember, he's small. He's small in stature. And so what happens, unfortunately, to small kids?
They get bullied.
They get bullied, and he was bullied. He reports having been bullied, but he doesn't just put up with it. He fights back. He's scrappy. He's little, but he's a scrappy little guy, and so he's fighting off these bigger guys, and so he's really, really not happy at all at school until something happens. He has to board with an apothecary. So the apothecary is getting close to little Isaac, and he's noticing some pretty cool stuff in the apothecary shop. Well, that looks cool, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. There's mixtures of potions and, just making, combining all these chemicals, and he becomes really, really interested in that. So he wants to study that. The apothecary allows him to read the books that he has on hand, and his favorite book is this one right here. Okay, so this is the Mysteries of Nature and Art, and it has potions in it. It's got some of the mixtures, the chemistry in it, but it also has mechanics. So little Isaac has become very, very interested in mechanics, and the next thing you know, he himself is creating toys. He makes kites. He makes little small toy windmills, but he actually makes a water clock. He makes a water clock, and he's 12. He's 12 years old when he's doing this. Now all of a sudden he's interested in school. His grades are going up, and he's getting noticed by his teacher. But it's time for him to graduate. And when he graduates, what does his mother want?
Back to the farm.
She wants him back at the farm. That's exactly right, Pat. That's why we need you here.
Oh, sorry.
So she wants him back on the farm, and the teachers at school, hi John, the teachers at school are they believe so strongly in him. They see his genius, and so they have to plead and plead with Hannah to please, please, please let him stay and go on to university. And finally, they're able to talk her into it, and he enrolls in
Trinity College.
Yeah, isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
Trinity College. So he's enrolled in Trinity College, and remember, we are talking about a time of chaos, right?
Yeah.
They've just reinstalled Charles II. There's this kind of revelry because they've been under a kind of a Puritan oppression under Cromwell, right? I'm sure you all know this story. And so at this point in time, what do you think is happening with young people all across the country?
They're having fun.
Yes, Effie, you said it perfectly. They're having fun. There's this kind of reckless abandon. And I don't know how reckless this seems, but I couldn't find anything, appropriate, but also depicting what I want to impart to you. But so you get the picture. So they're college kids, and the whole country has had this oppressive cloud lifted off of them, and there is just this kind of revelry going on. Isaac does not want any part of that. He's just not like that. He's just not a young man that would be interested in that kind of thing. And so unfortunately, that kind of makes him go inward. He becomes introverted. And it's not that he's without his friends. He has some really amazing friends. His friends are, just as we said from the beginning, Pythagoras and Descartes and Kepler and Galileo and Copernicus. He dives into reading and studying. Here he is at Trinity College, and he's probably taught himself more on his own than he learned in his classes. He's diving into this. He doesn't want to be a part of the social life. He's just completely condemned that, and so now he's diving into these studies for his own self-edification. Also, remember his mom, Hannah, she does not want him to be doing this. She thinks it's irresponsible. She wants him back running the farm. And so she's not supporting him. She's not financially supporting him. So Isaac has to do what while he's in school? He's working. And he's working not only as a waiter in taverns, but he's also earning money cleaning the rooms of his classmates. That can't be good, right? So socially, he just becomes more and more isolated socially. So he graduates, and because he's just devoted himself to study, he has done extraordinarily well. And so he applies for and he receives a full scholarship to continue in a graduate program at Trinity. And he gets this scholarship, and as soon as he's about to start, something tragic happens. Something strikes England right at this time.
Black Death.
Yes, you've got it. You've got it. The Black Death, the plague. It strikes right as he's about to go into more intense studies. The school closes down, of course, so nobody's in Cambridge. And where does Isaac have to go? He has to go back to the farm, okay? He's been avoiding this. He doesn't want to do this, but he's got to save his life. He has to go back to the farm. Now, this is where everybody thinks that this is what happened. So he's back at the farm, you get away from the plague, and everybody thinks that he's sitting under a tree at the farm, and an apple falls and hits him on the head, and that's where he comes up with his whole theory of gravity. Right? Isn't this pretty much it? Doesn't that encapsulate the whole thinking? Well, that's not exactly how it happened. He is at the farm. First of all, he was not taking a selfie. Yeah, they didn't have, I can promise you that. He didn't have a cell phone back then. But he's at the farm for 18 months. It's 18 months before he can go back to school. And what he's done, so he's already an obsessive compulsive studier. We have seen that, right? Can you imagine how much more so? If he's got nothing else to do, that's what he's doing. That's all he's doing, night and day and night. And so he does pursue these thoughts about gravity, but he does many other things. So here's what happened during those 18 months. So this young man develops calculus. Calculus. All right? And what is calculus? It's the mathematical study. Go ahead, John.
Continuous change.
It's the mathematical study of continuous change. And then this is what it looks like. Here's from his notebook.
Dear.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Can you imagine sitting down and figuring all of this out? And what kind of bodies of mass would have continuous change?
Astronomy.
Yeah, well, So his study in astronomy was pretty fascinating to him, and so he intently studied that. And then we'll get to these other things that he was looking into. But first, after calculus, which just all by itself would have been pretty amazing, right? Yeah. He goes on and he studies light. He studies the actual nature of light. And I've got a clip for you. So I'm going to show you the clip, and I'll let this explain it.
1942 into an England that was a country in transition. But that was the start of the English Civil War. It was a country where they were still hunting for witches, but also it was a country where science, where rational thought, where reason were beginning to flower. Now, at the time, one of the great questions was about the nature of light. It was known that if you take a prism and shine sunlight through it, then it splits that sunlight into all the colours of the rainbow. The question was why? Now, the prevailing scientific view was that sunlight must be perfect. This dated all the way back to Aristotle and the ancient Greeks. How could something that comes from the heavens be anything other than perfect? The common explanation for the appearance of the colours was that they were impurities added by the prism to the pure white light. Newton thought that the colours were already present in the white sunlight. But what set Newton apart was the fact that he devised and performed an experiment to test his hypothesis. First, he made a rainbow by shining white light through a prism. Then, and here's the genius, he introduced a slit into that rainbow beam, and that allowed him to isolate a particular colour of light and shine that into a second prism. Then he looked for the deflection of the coloured light onto his wall. You can see that over there. Now, look what happens when I move the red light across the slit to the green light. On the wall, what you see is green light into the prism equals green light out. Now, that implies that the colours themselves are pure. The prism is not adding or subtracting anything. That means that Newton's hypothesis was shown to be correct. The colours themselves are the basic building blocks of light, and white light is made up of all those individual colours. That's genius.
He's one of my favorite physicists because he's just like always smiling. He's just always smiling. He just loves his work. So Newton figures out that white light is all the colors. All the colors. He figures out that things on their own are not the color that we see them. It's how they reflect light. All right? So a carrot in the dark would be what color?
Black.
Yeah. So things are not a color outside of how they reflect the light. And that is a genius leap of understanding. And when he was able to do that, he was also able to figure out, remember who invented the telescope? Galileo. So this is years before, actually, I think Newton was born the same year Galileo died. I believe that's true. I could be wrong, but I think that's true. And so when they're looking through the telescope, through the lens, because of the refraction of light, what kind of an image are they getting?
Colored upside down.
Blurred, right? It's blurred, yes. Yeah, upside down. But so what Newton did was because he had such a great understanding of light and color, he created a new telescope, and this telescope is made with a mirror that would block the light. Well, here's how it works. All right, so his lenses, this is a handmade, this is something he did while he was just waiting out the plague. Another thing other than calculus that he did. So he makes this telescope now. Astrologers are trying to solve the blur and distortion problem, and the way that they're trying to solve it is by having these elongated telescopes. They were crazy long in order to tone down the blur, and so he comes up with one that, look at that.
Looks like about 6 inches.
Yeah, it's about 6 inches long. So he's able to do one that works as well, and it's manageable. You can hold on to it. Let's take a look at this.
Telescopes today are journeying deeper into space and searching further to discover secrets that Galileo could never have imagined. But to capture pristine images like these, telescopes had to undergo a dramatic evolution. Back in the 1650s, the first step in this evolution was going to great lengths, quite literally. Telescopes became very long, 15, 20 feet. The problem with early telescopes was fuzzy images. The reason? The shape of the lens. As NASA astrophysicist Kim Weaver demonstrates, when a strongly curved lens bends or refracts beams of light, the light doesn't all come to a single point.
First of all, the different beams of light don't line up, and so the image that you get with this lens would be really fuzzy. Also, some of the light has its colors split out, and that distorts the image.
The only way to minimize the blurriness and the rainbow colors is to use thinner lenses with a shallower curve. Because the light comes to a focus further from the lens, refracting telescopes get longer and get greater magnification. 17th century astronomers make ever thinner lenses and space them further apart.
By about 1660, telescopes have magnified 50 or 100 times, and those lengths increased and increased and increased.
This is the first space race. On the quest to see ever further, telescopes reach absurd proportions, up to 150 feet in length, half the length of a football field. These unwieldy telescopes are better, but astronomers want to see even more detail, and these telescopes don't eliminate the rainbow colors altogether. Then, one of science's greatest minds sets out to solve the problem: Isaac Newton. He takes a look at light itself.
Newton found that white light was
was in fact composed of all these different colours, the colours of the rainbow.
As white light passes through a glass prism, it bends or refracts, breaking up into the colors of the rainbow. This was the root of the astronomers' problems.
Now, a lens is a kind of a prism, if you like. Once the light hits the lens and passes through it, it's broken up into its colours. So Newton says, well, we'll abandon refracting telescopes completely. There's no future in this. Just forget them. I'm going to design a telescope which has mirrors as the primary components instead of lenses.
Newton will use mirrors in his new telescope. He believes he can do this because when mirrors are curved, they bring light to a focus, just like a lens.
I'm using this lens right now to focus the light from the sun behind me, and if I hold it just right to a point on the card, oh my goodness, it's catching on fire. That was smoking.
Next up, the curved mirror.
And you can see as I bring it closer to the focal point of the mirror, it actually begins to burn the paper again.
But there's one critical difference between a mirror and a lens. The light bounces off the mirror's surface. It doesn't pass through it, so there are no rainbow colors. Newton creates a tiny telescope only 6 inches long. He makes a curved mirror only 1.5 inches across and inserts it into the base of the tube. Light from the heavens passes down the tube, reflects off the curved mirror, then reflects off a second flat mirror, and is focused by an eyepiece. This small reflecting telescope works just as well as a 4-foot telescope that uses lenses. Isaac Newton, in creating the first reflector, eradicates rainbow colors, a problem that has plagued telescopes since the time of Galileo.
So do you think that was a big deal?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge deal because, of course, now, with Galileo looking out, being able to see space and the planets and the details and the craters and the moon stuff, that was just the craze. Everybody wanted to be able to do that, to understand the planets and the rotations and all of that was just the height, the epitome of science at the time. And so Isaac Newton, with this simple 6-inch telescope, he's able to lead us to things like this and also to things like this. Right? It's so exciting. Well, it was very exciting at the time too in England. In fact, Isaac Newton was invited to come and address the Royal Society with this new telescope. And do you think that he's well received? Yes. Now remember, he's very introverted, okay? He's very introverted. He's not socially inclined to interact with other people. So he goes and he does this Royal Society, and some people accept him, and some people don't. Do you remember what happened to Leonardo when there was some jealousies involved? Remember that from last week? Yes, there was an accusation made against him, a charge that could have cost him his life because people were jealous. Well, when Isaac Newton demonstrates his studies on light, there is somebody of the Royal Society, his name is Robert Hooke. And not only does he criticize, at this time, he's the top scientist in the area. And not only does he criticize Isaac Newton, but he even suggests that some of his work was taken from his own work. Yes. Yes. He's insinuating that. Well, Isaac Newton is not happy about that at all. And so now all of these major, incredible things like calculus and understanding gravity and all of these things that he's discovered, because this one didn't go well on optics, guess what Newton decides to do? Or what he decides not to do? Publish. He's not going to publish. So he's made all these fascinating discoveries and nobody knows. No one knows about it. He has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of notebooks. He's got all this amazing information, but he's just refusing to publish. And they offer him this position right here, the Lucasian Chair of Professorship in Mathematics. So he wants to take that. This is a big, prestigious appointment for him, and there's only one problem with that, though. When you take that seat, does anybody know some famous people that have had it?
Did you say Stephen Hawking?
Oh, yeah, Stephen Hawking. Oh, see, they're right there. I do that all the time. I give you the answers all the time. So you have to become a minister. Okay? And Isaac Newton was not a believer in something very important to where he was teaching. He was not a believer in the Holy Trinity. No, he believed in God. He was not a believer. Now, if you've been in our Bible history, you know that the nature of Jesus has been in question right from the very beginning, right? And so it continues on and on and on and on. And so Isaac Newton did not believe in a Trinity. He didn't believe in a Trinity. Now, where does he work? Where would he be having?
Trinity College.
Trinity College.
Do you think that's a problem?
Could be.
A problem to not believe in the Trinity when you're working at Trinity College. But he's just such a upright kind of a man that he decides, I'm going to resign the post. I'm not going to take it because I can't say something I don't believe, and I can't take this insinuating that I do believe in something I don't believe. So he was just going to bow out, even though this was a great honor that was bestowed upon him, and they just couldn't believe his integrity. So you know what they did?
Changing out of college?
They gave him a special dispensation. Did someone say change the name of the college? No, they gave him a special dispensation so he was able to take that seat. He was able to take that professorship. But yes, you would think, so that was really great that you had asked that, Dennis, or wondered, did he believe in God? He did. He did. In fact, he believed in God so strongly that was his whole pursuit. He wanted to understand God through God's creation. That's what was driving him. He had a very, very strong faith. As a matter of fact, he studied Scripture. He studied Scripture more than he studied anything else. He's got more notes on Scripture. He's dissecting it, he's cross-referencing, and there are more notes on Scripture than on calculus, than on optics, than on gravity, than on anything else combined, except it might be interesting for you to know that all of his notes were secret. He had to keep them a secret. He had to keep his studies a secret because he was studying most especially the books of Daniel and Revelation. You know it's in there, right? Prophecies, yes. Prophecies, things like that. Do you know that Isaac Newton, as he's studying Daniel and Revelation, he comes up with a year for the end of time. And it's right here.
Like Nostradamus. Well, we'll be gone.
We're not worried about that. Yeah, that's too far into the future. But yes, he had to keep this a secret. What could have happened to him if it came out that he was trying to dissect? And he wasn't just studying Daniel and Revelation in Scripture. He was also studying alchemy, yes. Now, this wasn't discovered until many years later when his notebooks were sold at auction, and the buyer figured out how to read they were in code, how to read his notebooks. So he was studying alchemy, and he's looking for yes, the Philosopher's Stone. And what that is most people know that as turning common metals into gold. But really what Isaac Newton was looking for, he was looking for, remember Pythagoras was saying there's 4 elements, there's only 4 elements, everything can be boiled down to 4 elements, and Isaac Newton was thinking, if I could just understand the right combination of these 4 elements, I could create anything. He was trying to figure out the mind of God and how God created. He wasn't looking for gold. The gold to him was understanding the mind of God. That was his gold. That was his gold. And so he had furnaces in his rooms. He had an assistant who said that he barely ate, he barely slept. He was working on this, and he might have died working on this, trying to figure out this problem. But a couple of things happened. That just whipped his whole life into a different direction. Number 1, Robin Hook died. Okay? Robin Hook, his nemesis. What?
Stroke of luck.
A stroke of luck. So Robin Hook died, and after Robin Hook died, was he free to publish?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, so he's free to publish. So Robin dies, and then somebody you might be familiar with. Do you know who Edmund Halley is?
Yeah, Haley's
Yeah, that's the same one. The very same Halley's Comet guy goes to Isaac Newton and says, look, I know your reputation. Now remember, he hasn't published because he was criticized. I know your reputation, and people are telling me to come talk to you about this. And he's trying to understand the rotation of the planets around the sun. And so what does Isaac Newton tell Edmund Halley? Oh, well, I've solved that. I've solved that.
Yeah.
He solved it years ago, but nobody knows, right?
No.
Nobody knows because he didn't publish. So he shares his findings with Halley, and so he publishes this most incredible research, right?
Yeah.
The Principia Mathematica. You've all heard of this, I'm sure. It only has a few interesting tidbits in there, all right? Like, for example, the laws of motion, how to find the mass of planets, why the Earth is flat at the poles, and why it bulges at the equator, how the tides work, the progression of the equinoxes, and the motion of what? Ooh, that would be interesting to Edmund Halley, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and then, so first of all, so that's pretty impressive, right? In one publication, we've got all that and more. Laws of motion, we all know the laws of motion, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
There it is.
Whatever goes up must come down, that's yes.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yes, yes. All right, so that's probably the one that we all know best. But let me share something with you. The school, Trinity College, where he's working, they couldn't finance this publication. Edmund Haley was such a believer. He was so impressed. He was so knocked out and blown away by the work of Isaac Newton that he personally financed it. And if he had not done that,
It would have been a big hole in science.
a big hole for maybe a long time, right? For maybe a long, long time. If Edmund, so we all know Haley's comet, yes? But do you see how we are indebted to him for having financed? It just blows my mind too that Trinity College couldn't do that at the time. So thank you, Edmund Haley, for financing that. Now, once it's published, what happens to Isaac Newton? He becomes a superstar. He is the greatest scientist. He is, yes, in England. Oh, they're so proud of him. It's just, he's among royalty. He is just the greatest thing that ever lived. He's hailed and praised. And we've got our introvert, right? How does he respond to all of this attention?
He runs away from
He loves it.
He loves it.
He loved it, and he shocked everybody because he just kind of lapped it up. He thought it was great. He absolutely loved it. I brought him right out of his shell. It was just the thing he needed. So he had been suppressed for all these years, and then this publication and the reaction to it brings him right out of his shell, and he steps right into this whirlwind of praise and adoration. He is so admired that he becomes master of the mint.
Oh my.
Yes, he's master of the mint, and maybe that doesn't sound too, does one equate with the other, a scientist? But if you think about it, it takes a lot of, accurate weighing of the coins and stuff. So there's science in there, I guess. Anyways, but he mints a coin in the likeness of Queen Anne. And how do you think Queen Anne responds to that? Well, she sees him right away because she wants to do this. And so now we have who?
Sir Isaac.
Sir Isaac Newton. Yes, so now we have Sir Isaac Newton. She knights him. Okay. Another thing I think you should all know is with this adulation, he becomes the president of the Royal Society. And you know what's the very first thing he did? He erased all references to Robert Hooke. Yes, so when he holds a grudge, apparently, he holds it for a long, long time. Yeah, he tried to just expunge Robert Hooke from all of history. Now he died, what?
No, I'm just laughing.
He dies an old man. He lives quite long. I think he's in his 80s for that time. And he is so adored that this is his tomb. And do you know where he's buried?
Westminster.
Yes, he's buried in Westminster Abbey. And this is his tomb.
Yeah.
There he is. So for this little premature, tiny little baby born without a father, whose mom left him, who was bullied, these are all of the accomplishments and positions that he held in his life. Not bad.
And head of the Illuminati.
Yeah.
And head of the Illuminati. Ooh. So somebody knew about his secret studies. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Next week, I cannot wait to tell you this story.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting.
Yeah,
story.
this is a fascinating story. This is a royal battle right here, and I'm going to tell you every sordid little detail. So I hope you'll all join me next week, and I thank you so much for coming today. I hope that you enjoyed that one.
That was good.